All right, YouTube, I thought it was important to cover what happened, of course, last night at the Republican National Convention. We all saw two speeches in a row, and it was actually rather funny. First, Ted Cruz got up on stage and started ranting about the Constitution and freedom. Now, normally if you do this, you get applause from a Republican audience. But everybody knew sort of what it represented that Cruz was actually standing there in the first place. They assumed, or they hoped, that Ted Cruz was going to endorse Donald Trump. He would come out, he'd make a few minutes of speech, then he'd pause, do that dramatic thing he generally does, and they'd say, and that's why I've decided to endorse Donald Trump, because we can't let Hillary win, or some excuse like that. Now, of course, he didn't do that, and he got booed off stage by, 10,000 people as the result of this. And I think people are trying to narrow things down and say that the reason that he did this is, he's trying to position himself like Reaganite style because he's the runner-up, and next time around he thinks that Trump can't make it, or Trump will make it and be unpopular, and he'll be waiting in the wings, of course, with all the support in the world, as this sort of weird insider-outsider hybrid in order to be the next nominee of the Republican Party in 2020. I think there are a couple of other possibilities. That is one possibility. It's possible that he's positioning himself. He thinks Trump will lose, and so Clinton will get elected, and I think most people understand if Clinton's elected, she's not going to be a good president. Most people will dislike her from the get-go. That will grind her down over time. She'll end up being a one-term disaster. She's not Obama. She's not that fresh-faced, sort of mostly scandal-free like Obama was. Obama got away with some of the bullshit because he didn't have 3 decades of history of defrauding people and embezzling money and getting people killed and being involved in possible assassinations. So when people ranted about how he was a gay, socialist Kenyan Muslim who snorted coke and stuff like that, or worship the devil, people largely ignored it, and they said, well, that's a bunch of freako weirdo stuff. But if you were to say that sort of thing about Hillary Clinton, I think that some of that might actually stick, because you know she has a reputation among the vast majority of the population, including a lot of Democrats, as being a chronic liar. But I think the other possible reasons that Cruz might have done this are twofold. The first is, I think there's a possibility he just feels jilted. That is, the insults over the course of the primaries, twain with the fact that he lost, makes him feel so negatively towards Trump that the only reason he showed up is to make it look like he was being graceful in losing, but he never really expected to endorse him anyway. I think it's a tactical blunder. I don't think he's going to get reelected to the Senate. Unfortunately for Mr. Cruz, I think this is the end of his political career, because I don't envision that Trump is going to get absolutely ass-blasted. Clinton comes in and just goes full retard, and then all of a sudden everyone looks to Ted Cruz. I think there are other people they would begin looking to before Cruz. Cruz is not technically even eligible to hold that office. That would be, by the way, if he were to run again, even if he were the front runner and he won the primaries, that would still become a legal issue. The Democratic Party, at the very least, would attempt to exploit that. Third parties might try to knock him off in order to get it so that all I have to do is attack the Democrats. You could see the Libertarians or the Greens actually start such a lawsuit. You could see certain states try to start such a lawsuit, say, well, we're not putting him on the ballot because he's born in Canada. I think that the third possibility, and this is perhaps the most interesting one, is that this is actually a plan by Trump and Cruz together, and there's actually no bad blood at this point between them at all. You imagine Trump has derived a lot of his notoriety, a lot of his media time, and a lot of his support, especially among independents, by being against a large proportion of the Republican Party's donor base, the vaguely defined establishment, which involves certain politicians, large groups of donors, other various figures, philosophical figures so-called within the Republican movement. wouldn't it look better then for probably the person that his fans, especially those that are more independent or extreme, like they're almost like cult of Trump mode, wouldn't it look better for him, buff his numbers up further, to make it look like he's still under attack from at least one rogue element in his own party, thus causing people to say, hey, oh, we need to vote for him at higher numbers, we need to go out and put more billets up, we need to make more posts online, we need to flood the media and the airwaves with support for Trump, because obviously there's still somebody with a marginal amount of support within his party that refuses to support him. I think that probably would be the most interesting reason. Maybe he got a kickback from Trump just to play the bad cop, so Trump could come up there and smile and wave to people, and contrast the booing of Cruz with the cheers of people when he comes on to the stage, when he enters the building to hear, I think it was his son speaking. Then you've got Newt afterwards. Newt probably delivered one of the best speeches he's ever made. Now, he's not a bad speaker anyway. I think he's nutty, but he's not a bad speaker. He's a good orator. And very quickly shut up any possibility that Cruz was going to have any great effect on the proceedings of the convention by reinterpreting what he had said in order to make it seem like Cruz actually did endorse Trump. It was actually pretty funny. I think it was a joke, obviously. I think he was actually bitter at Ted Cruz, because Newt's been on board the Trump train for some time. But is this going to change the metrics of the election? No. It's not going to hurt Trump. If anything, it'll help him, because it'll show independent voters, hey, he's still fighting certain members of his own party. He's not just some fucking Republican partisan. Hell, he was a Democrat not that long ago. I think that's going to keep endearing him to some of these segments of the population. Now, does it mean well with the evangelicals? No, maybe not. But you've got to remember where the evangelicals in this country are, and ask yourself if a decline in 5% evangelical turnout in a place like Wyoming or South Dakota is really going to fucking hurt him. Of course not. He's still going to win those states by 20 points. That's the most deep red part of the country, evangelical stronghold. As for the deep South, the Baptists didn't even like Ted Cruz. They've always liked Trump anyway. He's way ahead there. The one or two states down there that he was remotely in danger of having in play, I think it was Georgia and Arkansas, he's now 5 or 10 points ahead there. He's got no problems. Just like Hillary may have sewn it up in Michigan, although I'm going to call outlier on the poll showing her 4 points ahead. Because if the general has narrowed as much as it has to the point at which there's now virtually a statistical tie between the two people, I don't think so. I think Michigan's a lot more in play than you'd like to believe. Same with Pennsylvania. I think Trump's almost certain to win Pennsylvania. Michigan's more of a long shot. But if he takes them both, I mean, at that point, he'll have all the other swing states probably too. Gingrich made some nice comments about Pence as well. Apparently, Pence's popularity, carries over into parts of the Midwest. Might help him in Iowa. As for Clinton, still no clue who she's going to put in there as her VP. They're talking about a few boring individuals. The only one that's there that would whip people up is Elizabeth Warren. And having a two-female ticket, where Clinton has gone far, far to the left because of all trying to reabsorb Sanders fans, and then putting Elizabeth Warren on there, she'd disenfranchise so many business Democrats that she would literally be sacrificing the Rust Belt and losing the election while standing on principle. Not that she has any. I don't think that it will be Elizabeth Warren, though. I give best odds to anybody but a progressive far leftist. I think she needs a business Democrat on there to have any viability at all, let's face it, at this point, because she's beginning to alienate some of the centrists within the Democratic Party by trying to constantly whore after the burnouts. So yeah, there's a little bit about the RNC and Ted Cruz's non-endorsement. I don't think it's going to do anything. It's just like before with all that other drama that Trump has gone through. It didn't really, he's drawn even with Clinton. He's actually rising in the polls while this is all going on. Now, if you listen to Salon or something like that, the RNC is a spectacle of you know, a bunch of demoniacs that don't know what they're doing. They're just all delusional or evil and bigoted and filled with hate. And yet his numbers are rising. I think that's probably going to continue. Now, I don't think that any of his bounce recently has to do with that. I think part of it has to do with Clinton suffering from the FBI investigation. Several points worth of people from the independent movement and maybe business Democrats have abandoned Hillary Clinton and begun supporting both Trump and third-party candidates as well. So she is declining at the same time he's inclining. Some of that is soft support he's grabbing from Hillary. But the fact that he can do that at all he needs is like maybe 1% of the U.S. population more than he already has to abandon her. And he's got the election. That's kind of the fucking point. So yeah, it's looking up for him. I believe there's still one more night of conventioneering going on. Newt made a good speech. Cruz's speech was good. It's just he didn't endorse Trump and got booed off stage. Nobody now is going to remember anything about his speech other than the fact that he did that. That's about all. Peace out.